Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Notary Academy. I'm Kimberly Sennett, and today we are featuring another incredible story from one of our students, Miss Lynn Klein. At Notary Academy, we're all about real notaries, real journeys, and real results. So, our guest, Lynn, has taken the leap into the notary world, and we're going to hear all about her path, her challenges, and her wins and her experience with Notary Academy. So, Lynn, thank you so much for being here today. I can't wait
Oh,
to
it's my
hear all about
pleasure.
your path.
My pleasure, Kimberly. I love Notary Academy. I am so grateful. And I'm so happy that I selected you guys when I started my journey as a notary in California. Gosh, it's been over a year now. So, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for being here. And that's awesome. So that's what I was going to ask you is introduce yourself to us. Tell us exactly where you're from. What made you decide to become a notary? And I want to know what your life was like before you became a notary. What did you do in work and business? Let everybody know what that was all about.
Okay. The short side of it is I was born in upstate New York. My parents moved me to Texas, and that's where I got all of my education. I ended up falling into working for attorneys. I got my legal assisting degree, became a notary there when I was in my 20s and 30s. I loved it. It was a lot of fun. I ended up being a true legal assistant, helping try cases, creating documents, working with clients. And over the years, it's evolved more into doing office management for law firms, some other marketing production companies and things like that, but mostly legal. And I think I'm just more comfortable with it. In the legal you have only one way to go, and you have to keep things done the correct way, or the attorneys get sued by the clients. And that has been distilled in me. I've not ever made a mistake, knock on wood. I chose not to work for attorneys anymore a few years ago. I just decided I needed to do something on my own time. And I have a special needs daughter that's in her mid 20s, and I wanted to be able to be a little more available for her when she needed me. So I decided to go the route of getting my notary commission in California. And I also missed interacting with clients. And I feel like I've really found my footing with that again. I'm finding I have repeat clients. But first and foremost, when I decided that I was going to become a notary, I had done all the research, and the first thing that I did was I started looking at who were good agencies that could help me with regards to where I wanted to get, where did I want to take my 6 hour course? What else did they have to offer? I didn't want to do the work at your own pace. I could have, but I just thought, no, I want to have the full package of being able to reach out to people if I have a question or a concern. What do I do? That kind of thing. And Notary Academy was at the top of the list. And I actually waited a few months before I actually pulled the trigger on it in early 2024. I'm already the years. And just because I was like, oh, is this still what I want to do? Like, I knew I wanted to be a notary. I just was trying to make sure, like, did I want to pick that versus what was the best thing? You never know until you actually try it, right?
Right.
And being a notary in Texas, it was very, very different back then. We're talking about in the late 80s and 90s. So things were very different. And they still kind of are between our two states.
Yeah.
So long story short, I selected Notary Academy because of everything that you had to offer. And I'm so grateful that I did. I love being able to reach out if I have a question, or if I'm at the table, which I can thankfully say I feel like I've gotten such a great education from you guys, and the repeat following up with things like that I can just go to log in on my account and look at things that I've studied before, when I did my certification as a loan signing agent. I can go look something up or replay it and, not have to ask if I'm, just have that downtime.
Yeah.
And so that's been really nice. And then being able to, like, I think I've only done it 3 times over this last year that I actually had to reach out to you or Audra when I was at the table. And I was so grateful that I could do that and ask the question just to make sure I was doing it right. And I feel like my compass is always like when I have that feeling of needing to ask because it's not worth the mistake,
Well, and
and
it's
so
yeah, it's kind of nice to have that confidence, right in your back pocket. Like you're like, okay, I feel pretty confident that I know the answer, and that's what I get a lot of times from students is that Kim, I'm pretty sure I know this, but like, can I just run it by you? And then they do it and they're like, and I can do this, right? And I go, yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. Yeah. And it's like it just kind of gives you that moment to go, okay, that reassurance. You have somebody there to go, yes, you are doing it correctly because you're a man on your own island, right? You're
You
running your own
are, you
business.
are. And it really is like, it's so nice to have that reassurance. There's been times that Audra said, this. And I'm like, I just wanted to just be sure, I just wanted to be sure, because I did, you get in that moment and you're like, oh, you know what? I don't want to do this yet. Let me just double check this really quick. Not saying that to him, but in my head, I'm going, I need to double check,
Absolutely. And
so
I think that makes you a better notary. There's a lot of notaries that would take that as they would feel like their confidence isn't there as well because the fact that they have to follow up or they're questioning what they're doing. And
Mhm.
ultimately, I don't think that people should feel that way. I think that they should actually feel empowered by that because they're doing their due diligence. They're making
Yes,
sure that they're crossing all the T's and dotting the I's and making sure things are
absolutely.
being done right way. So,
Absolutely.
um, you had a legal background. You were a legal assistant, so this probably came pretty easy to you. But something you said to me, that I'm interested in is what year did you get your very first notary commission? Because you said you got it in Texas, right?
Yes, I did. And I think I know I still have my journal. It's locked in a cabinet in our storage. It's I want to say it was somewhere around 1994. I
Wow.
think 1994, 1995. And I had that commission for at least 10 years. I may have had it 15. I stopped at one point. I was like, oh, I'm not sure. I probably don't really need it as much anymore. Plus, one of the attorneys that I had in the office was my husband. So I was kind of like, I obviously couldn't notarize his signature. But
Right.
for others, I did. And we owned a building. So we had other attorneys in there that needed help. So I kept it for a while. But, most of our staff had notary credentials, so it wasn't a big
Right.
deal. But yeah, it was a long time ago, and
So you're
I
you're
I
yeah, you're an OG notary,
I
right?
am, and it was if I remember right, I don't think I got an inked stamp for several years. I got the embossed
Oh, okay. Yeah,
press.
yeah.
It was metal and it had the rays.
Uh-huh.
Back in that time, everything was filed as paper at the courthouse and
Sure.
things were run. And that was what I started doing. I went from being a service manager assistant to high-end company. That was my very, very first job at like 17. But then after I got hired away from there by a paralegal I knew, she asked me, she said, I really love you to come work at this law firm with me. And the attorney, I just love him. He gave me my first $100 bill as a legal secretary slash runner. I was still in school, but he left a $100 bill on my desk because I had done so well with my grades that semester. And he wrote me
Aw,
I still have the note.
that's
So yeah, it's
awesome.
just very sweet. And but I loved that work and I loved being able to like, do that. And just the fact of like stamping your stamp and making it an official document back
Right.
then.
Yeah. So
So
you told me that you sat on the fence for a minute. You weren't quite sure if you were going to get back into getting your notary commission or not. But then once you did decide and you pulled the trigger on Notary Academy, what was it that made you decide to go with Notary Academy?
the one, and I don't think in 2024 when I signed up with you guys, I don't recall it being work at your own pace. Did you have, I don't remember seeing that. I may be wrong.
Oh, you're
Um,
talking about for the 3 and the 6 hour course
yes.
to become a notary. So yeah,
Yeah.
we have both, but you took a
Okay.
you
But
you took a live
did
class
you
with
have
Angela.
both back then
We
in
did,
2020?
yeah, yeah,
Okay. Then I think that really what really brought me to wanting to go in with you all and sign up as a Notary Academy student and do the membership was everything that it encompassed, like the Facebook group page where it was members only. We could ask questions, run things by each other if we weren't at the table, but of course the aspect of reaching out and saying, I'm at the table, I need help, can someone call me? I loved that. And then I saw too that because I took my 6 hour course in May of 2024 with Angela, and I really loved it. And it was just me and one other student who's still a student with you guys, and it was really fun. It was just us. And then I think that that was part of it. You had just so many things to offer. I liked the fact that when you would sign in, you whatever you had selected to have as part of your membership package, you had access to it all the time, and I like that. I like being able to go back into it and refresh. I love that you guys have the Zoom meetups every week, and that you have different speakers that come on and inform us about things. It's just, I think that's incredibly helpful, and it keeps us like refreshed. And honestly, I probably go back and do my certified loan signing agent course. I would probably do it again in another few months, even though I feel very comfortable. I really, really love doing that. I did get it also with National Notary Association. I took theirs, but I will be very, very honest. I'm glad that I took Notary Academies first because the National Notary Association exam for being certified as a loan signing agent was much easier. It wasn't as, I didn't feel like it. I was like, this is nothing. So
right.
I obviously got schooled really well by Notary Academy.
Well, and just so you know, since you've taken it last, it's actually been revamped.
Has
So,
it? Okay.
and you have access to that. All of our
Okay.
students, once you purchase it, we never make you recertify. We always, any updates that we do, you get them for free. And
Okay.
the entire course has actually been redone, and we're actually getting ready to revamp it again. So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, go check it
Well,
out,
things keep
enjoy it.
changing. I can
Exactly.
see why, because things change. Everything's always moving forward, right?
Exactly. Well,
So that
and
makes
with
sense.
yeah, with remote online notarization on the horizon for California, all those sorts of things. But even nationally, because the course is for every state. So it definitely is exactly that. It's a revamp for whenever laws change, things change. We're trying to upgrade and, stay along with the times. So it's important. And
Oh,
I
it's great.
I like to point that out is I think a lot of times with certifications, we get them and we don't go back to them because we feel like it's the same thing or you're just repeating. But in our
Yeah.
case, yeah, go back to it because you're like, oh, wait a second, I haven't seen this, and it's all new.
Yeah,
So that makes it more enjoyable to be able to know that you're gonna go back and possibly learn something else that you didn't
absolutely.
previously. Okay, so let me ask you,
Sure.
can you think of one specific skill, tip, or lesson that Notary Academy has changed the way that you do your work? Anything where
Um,
you triple check documents now or things that you hadn't done previously? Uh,
Um, yes. Of course, always looking at the certificates that are provided, if they're provided in the packet, for any real estate transaction. I'm always looking now. I'm finding that even if some of the escrow companies or title companies end up um, putting one in and they've got the box and everything that is California compliant. The problem is that the verbiage is not always correct at the start of it. Like they say sign and sworn and not subscribed and sworn, and so now, and I found over time that um I spend a lot of time like if I like I had that pop up once more recently, and it was pointed out to me, so I was like, yeah, I know to cross it off, initial it, and write the correct word. But I now, what I do if I see something that's new to me and I actually have like a little running list that just kind of reminds me. It might be a couple, it's like less than 5 things, but you never know. And I think it's helpful. The other thing, the trainings that you did with us and that Laura did with us, where we would go through and look for the blanks, and I, I think feel like the meticulous part of me, like I just have a really strong need to make sure that everything is exactly right. And not that I don't care, that I want to hurry through for the signer's sake and get out of their hair, but I really feel like it's so important. And you've kind of embedded that in us in the trainings that, it's really important to take your time, double check everything, make sure you did not miss, date, notaries, the date, the names written in properly. I think at one point wrote my name inside the acknowledgement certificate and then forgot to put comma notary public, like early on. And I'd be like, oh yeah, now it comes naturally and you're looking for that. But I feel like that has been one of the biggest things that came out of Notary Academy for me, was that you guys really distilled that in us, and making sure that we watch for those things. I know there was something else that
how to
probably
do
come to me.
notarizations, right? How to do
Sorry.
notarizations properly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, I was at a cosmetics company yesterday notarizing some docs for some ladies there, and they didn't have the correct forms. And these were coming from banks and things like that. And so I needed to attach, and I always explain why and what that looks like. People have no idea, nor, maybe they don't care. Some of them do. Some of them are like, I'm glad you're telling me this, because, when I take it in, I'm going to say the notary is attached this, certificate. It's attached here for a reason. So, yeah, I feel like those are crucial. Otherwise, people are just stamp, and I won't do that. I refuse.
Right.
You have to do it the right way. So,
And that's nice to hear you're taking time to educate the public, because there's so many
yeah,
consumers that just don't know. They think that if they go into the UPS store and all the notaries in the UPS store are using the same journal, that that's okay. And it's like, no,
yeah.
it doesn't work like that.
They don't. And I've had a lot of customers say to me, I'm really grateful that you take the time to look through everything and double check. And because so far, I mean, in this last year, I've never had to go back. So I'm
That's
not,
incredible.
yeah, I've not, and I've said, like, if something comes up, I'm here, this is my job. It's like but no, there's been nothing. So
That's
I feel like, just keeping, like, taking the time, and the other thing you guys distilled in us is communication. like my dad would say, just communicate. If you tell your signers, explain why you're doing it. Maybe not go into like dive in full in details, but give them an idea of, like, that's one of the first thing I do when I walk into a signing with, their documents and they're closing on something, whether they're selling or buying or whatever. I explain to them what my role is and how I'm going to help them, and that at any time we can stop if you would like to call your agent if there is a question, because I can only show you what these documents are and point out blanks. And I don't go into a lot of detail on them. I ask them, I ask them right away, have you seen your docs? Because sometimes they haven't even seen their settlement or their settlement statement or their CD. And I want to make sure that, if they haven't had that opportunity, they can do that and take their time. And maybe, sometimes I'll pull it and say, why don't you look at it first? Sometimes one of the most important things in there.
Well,
Um,
and I do want to clarify for those notaries that are watching this that are signing agents. You just said something where you're like, and you are correct. There's times where a signer will say that they haven't seen their settlement or they haven't seen their closing disclosure. Please let me take the moment to clarify here that by federal law, they should have seen their closing disclosure at least 3 days prior to us sitting down and seeing them. However, one of the reasons why we see people that say, oh, I haven't seen this, is because their lender may have emailed that closing disclosure to them up to 3 weeks prior to the
right,
closing. And so
absolutely.
they may have seen it and they don't remember, or
Right.
their loan officer simply didn't go over it with them, which that's unfortunate because a great loan officer would have reached out to their client and gone over it. But I do see as a signing agent, oftentimes that doesn't happen. And when that doesn't happen, we as notaries have to really put our signing agent hats on and guide much harder and stronger than an informed signer or borrower. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Exactly that.
yeah,
And so I really do take pride in talking to them at first and going through things with them. And most of the time, I will say, I would say 98% of the time, they've all seen them. And I've had some
right.
that are like, let's just move, as you say, churn and burn, like, let's just go. And I'm
That's
like,
just
all right, make sure you double check let's just make sure that this is correct. And if we've got the right property address in here. And
good.
and they're very comfortable, and it does help. And they understand, what's taking the time and that kind of thing. And so yeah, some are so surprised as to how many notarizations you have to list in your book and how long that takes and that kind of thing. But most of them just like to visit afterwards, and I've had people ask me to stay for dinner. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a lovely feeling when people are offering things out of their garden and
Yes.
it's
Oh, I went home with a huge bag of lemons, and I was up on the 210. I had never been out to the 210. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll stay.
That's fantastic. I love it. So let me ask you, um, what has changed for you since you've been doing this in the last year? I don't like to talk about money because I think that there's a lot of training programs out there and a lot of people that they get the stars in their eyes and, oh, you can make so much money doing this. Obviously you can make great money doing this, especially if you're willing to like go at it super, super hard where you're working, nonstop.
Right.
Um, but what I'd like to know is, and you don't need to tell us exactly how much money you're making or anything like that. I just want to know, do you think since you've started this in the last year, I want to know, have you recouped all of your startup cost and have you made money past that?
Um, yes, I have recouped my startup costs. These last, I want to say 3 months, I actually started taking a paycheck for myself. I am very, I used to, before I moved out to California almost 10 years ago, I used to help run a accounting firm. And it was a boutique accounting firm. She had left a huge firm and asked me to come open up her firm for her. And so she's still my accountant, does all of my tax returns. And of course, I filed my taxes for my new business attached to my 1040 last year. I did not have to pay taxes, but I also am very meticulous at making sure that I get all the deductions, that I'm keeping track of mileage and all of my expenses. I think that everyone obviously needs to have a really good software program that tracks their income and their expenses. But yeah, I have. I have a little bit of debt that I'm now like, I've incurred over like for marketing and things like that, that I obviously will get that taken care of probably in the next couple months anyway. But yeah, I've done well. And I make sure and keep really good books. So like every signing that I have, I notate on my printed invoice that I do keep a printed invoice of each thing just so I have a backup if God forbid something were to ever happen. And I write on it how many notarizations, because our notarizations are non-taxable. And I track my travel fee. And then obviously my mileage is deductible. So I'm very meticulous about that and letting my CPA know what all that is at the end of
Okay.
the year. Mhm.
I think that that's fantastic. You're staying organized. I have to clarify something for anybody watching this.
Yeah,
You said your notarizations are not taxable, and you are correct. They're not taxable for self-employment taxes, guys, but you do have to pay income taxes. I am not a CPA. I'm not giving any advice here. Neither is Lynn. Let's make that very
absolutely.
clear. Just want
Absolutely.
everybody to be aware that when she said you don't pay taxes on notarizations, you don't, but you do.
For self-employment
That
for
makes
self-employment purposes, exactly.
yes.
And so yeah, just setting it out so that it's more obvious, more clear in that respect,
Right.
is the best course, so that when you do see it all, what in your self-employment area what that looks like versus your federal taxes.
And a great tip for all of you that she also said is she does have a CPA. I highly recommend it. Anybody that is getting into business for themselves, they should have a CPA. If you lack in bookkeeping skills or you're lacking, keeping track of stuff like that, a good bookkeeper is somebody you should team up with that will help keep you organized.
Yeah,
So thank you for that. Okay,
sure.
I would like to know what advice you would give to someone who is thinking about becoming a notary.
It's kind of easy because I've been trying to get my sister-in-law and my sister to do this. I would say first and foremost, don't just when you go to find a notary service that can provide you your 6-hour course when you're first starting out. I would find someone reputable, obviously, that the Secretary of State approves. And I would find you have to do what is comfortable for you, but because things can be quite sticky, particularly here in California, it's really important to be able to have, someone to go to and ask questions to, and a network, and I've made friends through Notary Academy. I attended the notary conference in Scottsdale last year, and I really love that. And I made friends, and I actually still have all their cards sitting here on my desk instead of my cards, which are in my bag, because I want to reach out and contact them. And I do. I text them, I call, I ask questions. We meet up for coffee. I've actually made connections with even a realtor, and her husband's actually a notary, and he's a realtor as well. But they actually asked me, they were like, can we market each other? And I'm like, sure, and it just met her by, chance of her contacting me and asking me to come notarize something for them because they couldn't do it for each other, obviously.
Right.
So I would say find a good company and I would highly recommend Notary Academy. My sister-in-law has gotten in contact with you guys, and I know she's kind of doing it the self-paced course, and she still works full-time, so I think it's taking her longer. But it's fun. It is really fun. Yes, it can be daunting if you're in LA. It's a lot of driving, and it's a lot of coordination for, figuring out, oh, can I do that signing and get to it in time? And, if I'm in this place at this time and I'm going to, supposedly finish in an hour, can I get to that next location? And
Right.
always have to look at the time and how traffic is, and
Yeah.
versus Texas. it's not, it's not like that. So it's, yes, they have 5 o'clock traffic, but it's nowhere close to what we're dealing with here. So
Right, right.
we have
Yeah,
hours of heavy traffic in LA. So,
exactly. So yeah, that's always important is knowing your traffic patterns and knowing
yeah,
mobile
yeah,
wise if you're
yeah,
capable of doing it without overbooking yourself, being able to, give yourself enough time in between.
yeah. And, Notary Academy provides so much that, you know, you don't really need anybody else. I mean, I just feel like this has been a good start for me, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I really wouldn't,
Oh,
because I don't know. I'm not sure there is anyone else out there that provides everything that you guys provide, and it being so personable, you
yeah.
know.
Well, and that's what
So
we've tried is that I notice with other training programs, they're so large that people feel lost in the shuffle
mhm,
or yeah, they're not providing so much of the in-depth type of training that we're giving and the reasons
yeah,
why we do the things that we do and how to protect yourself. The biggest thing is fraud,
absolutely.
disparity, and liability and protecting yourself. Um,
Yeah.
okay, so how do you see your notary career growing in the next few years?
Oh, hopefully more business, more and more business. I feel like it really has taken off. And I will say this, I spent the end of last year, even though I got commissioned during the summer last year, I spent all of the last quarter doing the certifications. I just felt like, and I'll admit, I was a little nervous about pulling the trigger and going out the door, because one, well, I spent my summers and holidays here in California all growing up, and this is like my second home. It wasn't Texas, and I knew everything in Texas, so when you're coming into a place where you've got to find your way around, and thank God we have navigation nowadays, but, yeah, it can be a little daunting. But I feel like, you guys have given such helpful tips about, we shouldn't be driving, 5 hours to get to that signing. And there's some things that I do want to do, because I really do love going to new areas and checking out California, because every place is like a totally different state. So every city is some other state to me, because it's so different. And I love that. I love that I can feel like I'm in a new world, and meeting new people. And that has been really wonderful. I've met such wonderful, wonderful people. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's great. So you are you gonna continue to diversify your notary business? Like, are you gonna focus only on loan signing or do you focus on everything?
I've been focusing on everything. I really do love the loan signing portion, though. I dig the paperwork. And other tips that I've learned through Notary Academy is being able to talk to people about your software, about your hardware. Getting advice about that kind of stuff has been very, very helpful. I getting the 3 drawer printer, that's high speed, laser jet, like the scanners, just making sure you've got what you need. And I find myself, because of being trained so well, I find myself with some of the signing services where, like, I had one yesterday, then their initial instructions had all these things, like, the scan backs. I was trying to think what else it was. They didn't even tell me that one of the documents was going to need a witness. And so there's some services that'll give you everything, and then there's some, but at the end of the day, on that particular signing, the signing service said to me, because I said, "Am I leaving these?" Because normally for estate docs, you usually would leave your originals with the signer, because he or she are going to put them in their book, right,
Right.
and then store them somewhere. Well, they had already sent me a prepaid thing to send it back to the law firm, and so my first question was, all of this coming back? Or am I just sending the deed that's putting this into a trust? Things like that. But because I was schooled, I knew to ask the questions. And then it turned out that they wrote me back in my email really quick and said, oh, by the way, you don't need to scan those back to us, even though the instructions that said scan them back. And I'm like, okay. So it's just the point. Like, that's the first thing I do when I get an order is I print the instructions, I go through it, I make sure, and I'm ready to go then. And then obviously printing docs. So I love it. I love tabbing my docs. I take pride in it. Looking for those blanks.
I love it. That's great. Well, I would like to know if someone is watching this and wondering if Notary Academy is the right fit for them, what is your message?
My message would be, if anything I shared today is of interest to you, whether it's one or two things, then it's the right fit.
Nice.
Because Notary Academy encompasses so much. We barely touched on some of it today. And I am so grateful for that. And it's worth it, and it's reasonable in cost. It's a very, very minor, reasonable expense that can save your commission. So I would say, yeah, sign
Thank
up.
you. Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's what I tell everybody is that it's a tax write-off. Even if you only join for 1 month and you watch all of our training, it will make you a better notary. I think it
It
will
will.
anyways. So
I will.
I appreciate that. Thank you so
My
much
pleasure.
for sharing your story with us today. Your journey is inspiring, and I know it's going to motivate so many others who are thinking about becoming notaries. If you're watching this and wondering if a notary career could be right for you, or if you're looking for training that actually prepares you for real world success, Notary Academy is here for you. Lynn, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for sharing your journey. You are inspiring. I'm proud of you, and I can't wait to see your career flourish even more than it already has. And thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. My pleasure.